So basically, I grew up in dysfunction, is the way that's best for me to describe it now. I grew up way too fast before I should have. I saw and experienced a lot of stuff before I should have. There was a lot of trauma. I'm not going to say, I know that there's people that are born into and still experience different and various forms of trauma and abuse and stuff like this. But for me, there was a lot of dysfunction in the respect that a lot of things were going on that I experienced that have now affected me as an adult.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Carpe Diem Living, the podcast. I am your host, Shane Gitmed, and today we are with another international friend. Her name is Brittany. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited. It's good to know that you've had international people before. Some people
Absolutely.
are like, oh, you're my first international person. So this is actually great. I'm excited.
Oh my gosh, I feel like I've traveled the world at this point with all the different guests that I've had.
That's what's really exciting about podcasts, I'd say, though, because for me, like so far, I've been on one in Australia with yourself today. And then I was talking to a girl earlier and she was from my home state, which is New Jersey. So it's weird. It's like you are traveling the world, but you're not physically traveling.
Exactly. And I know your time zone is like the complete opposite of mine, where it's almost end of day for you. And I'm like,
yeah,
still in the meat of the day.
Yeah, no, it's the midnight hour here. So it's like, it's weird. It's also weird getting used to the time zones and the time differences, but sure, you get used to it, I suppose, in the end.
Yeah. How long have you been in Europe?
Well, I'm living in Ireland since October of 2010. So it'll be 11 years this year I'm here.
Oh my gosh. What made you want to
Yeah.
move to Ireland?
So basically, my wife is from Ireland. We met online and we were engaged and everything when I moved over here. But really, I moved over to Ireland to give myself a second chance at life. And when I had visited here the first time on a holiday, there was just something I felt so different when I first actually landed in Dundalk, which is where I made my home then. I just kind of knew it, which I'm part of the woodwork now. I'm literally just part of the woodwork at this point, but it's a different world. Like, it's like America, it's like the land of opportunities. But for me, Ireland has literally given me a whole different outlook on life and everything. So I moved here because my wife is from here, but it's not just that, because we could have moved to America, and here was my second chance. So that's what really gave me wanting to move here.
I think that's wonderful that you had the opportunity and a bigger reason as far as wanting to move to a different country, because that takes a lot of guts, right? Like,
it does. Oh yeah,
wow.
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's not an easy process at all.
And you said you were from New Jersey.
Yeah, I'm originally born and raised in New Jersey. I lived there until I was 19. I wouldn't move back there. I miss it, but I miss the food more than anything. There's nothing, I wouldn't be like, oh yeah. Like, I do miss the scenery. The problem is with me, I didn't appreciate living in New Jersey until I moved out of New Jersey. So it's a bit hard. Like, I wouldn't move back to New Jersey, but there is parts of it that I miss. So.
And have you been back since you moved away?
Yeah, we, myself and Anya, we had to go back and forth for 2 years before I got my actual visa to stay in Ireland. So it was a lot of travel. It was a lot of back and forth, a lot of money. But from the time we got married, which was 2012, until 2016, we hadn't been home. So in 2016, it was a 4-year period after not being home that we went home for 2 weeks. And now, actually, it's just so weird because I just realized, I think it was yesterday, it's actually 5 years now this year since we've been home. So this is the longest amount of time I've gone without going home. And we were supposed to go home this year, but obviously with lockdown and the coronavirus had different plans. So maybe next year. I'm not really sure. It's not on my high priority list. I have other things going on. So we'll see when and where I get there again.
I think it's so interesting. Sometimes, people say home is where the heart is, or home is what you make it. And it's like when you've never been to a place before, but that environment just makes you feel like, wow, like I really enjoy being here. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with past lives or anything, but do you think that may have something to do with it? Like maybe you've spent time in this place before and it feels a little familiar?
It's actually really crazy that you say that, because I wouldn't be a big believer in until I moved to Ireland. In Ireland here, I'll use the example of my niece. Our youngest niece is 6 years old. And she is what they would say in Ireland. She's like a granny. It's crazy. She's like an old soul. And they always say, they're like, she's been here before. She's been here before. And it's just her character. I've never met a 6-year-old like her, and she really is pure old fashioned. So it's weird that you say that, because I really didn't understand that until I saw her grow up, and and I'm like, she had to have been here before. There's just something. So it's actually crazy. I believe in that stuff. And I would like to think maybe I have been in this world before. I'd like to believe that maybe I'll be in it again, and I'll be somewhere else in this world, when I'm reincarnated, or whatever they like to say. It's strange, because here really felt more like home than New Jersey ever did for me. And that's crazy.
Exactly. Yeah, I ask that because I'm very much one of those people where I take my environment very seriously. And if I'm just like, I don't love
Absolutely.
it, I'm not going to stay here. Like, there's just no way.
Yeah.
Like, it
Yeah.
totally
Because you're not going to be your best self in an environment like that. You
Right.
have to be one with your environment, because if you're not happy, you're not going to thrive.
Right. And it's crazy to see of the things that come into play after you've moved into a place you love. You're like, oh my gosh, exactly. Best self.
Yeah.
Thriving times 100. It's just
Oh, absolutely.
so many shifts that you'll notice. But
Absolutely.
it's so cool that you're in Ireland. So let's definitely dive into your childhood and adolescent trauma survivor. It takes a lot to want to talk about your story. So take us back and share whatever you feel on what your experience was.
Sure. So basically, I grew up in dysfunction, is the way that's best for me to describe it now. I grew up in dysfunction. I grew up way too fast before I should have. And I saw and experienced a lot of stuff before I should have. There was a lot of trauma. I'm not going to say, I know that there's people that are born into and still experience different and various forms of trauma and abuse and stuff like this. But for me, there was a lot of dysfunction in the respect that a lot of things were going on that I experienced that have now affected me as an adult, if that makes sense. So my mother was an alcoholic. I didn't have a father around, but I was raised by my mom and her brother, which is my uncle. Now, he's been the only father figure that I've ever solidly known in my whole life. There was always an emotional aspect that was lacking in our home. I knew that I was loved. I love them. They love me. But as a child, I don't think you understand, but you can get the feeling that there's like an emotional thing missing. I couldn't go home and like have these like deep, heartfelt conversations with my mom the way some other children can. And I think as an adult now, I can understand that there was an emotional lacking there. And, that definitely affected me as a child and has massively affected me as an adult. And that's just growing up in dysfunction, though. I've come to learn that as an adult now. So basically, growing up as a child of an alcoholic, my father was in and out of jail. He suffered with an addiction to alcohol and drugs. And all these things, I was basically born into this generational curse that I didn't ask to be born into. And I basically had to break the curse and end it myself. So that's basically what's given me the platform to write my book and share my experiences, because of what I was born into and what I experienced.
It's really hard when it feels like there's almost like this pressure when you're trying to break generational curses, generational bondages like that. You're just like,
absolutely.
No, cycle ends with me and moving forward. That's it. Like, yeah. I've experienced this myself. And it's just one of those things where you're like, I have to think about the future generations, right? When I have children, if there's nieces and nephews that come along from siblings, I don't know if you're an only child or not, that's also another big piece. See, so it can be really hard to take on that type of role, especially as a child. It's when you say that you had to grow up faster than you should have, I get that, because when you mature at that rate, it's almost like you feel like you've missed out on just being a kid.
Absolutely. I feel that now. And I think now that we have 2 nieces and a nephew, watching them grow up, I feel like sometimes it's so important for me to sit there and like revel in it, because I feel like I'm gaining a piece of my childhood that I kind of missed. I hate, and people always said to me, you're too wise for your age, but I don't think they realized that was because of my environment. You know what I mean? And unfortunately, I've missed out a lot of things, or some of it was just tore away from me, and it really shouldn't have been. And unfortunately, I think that's the price that children born in dysfunction and addiction and, all that sort of stuff and that survived trauma, that's unfortunately what we have to deal with, because we have no other choice.
Exactly. And, there's a lot of inner child healing that has to be done, because at the same time, even though in our physical body, we're XYZ years old, at the same time, there's pieces of us where we're like, ooh, we need to nurture that. We need to find ways to be like, I'm sorry that you didn't get to feel all the love, all the nurturing that you should have had, but I'm going to help you now. I think that takes
Yeah.
a lot to check in with yourself and be able to give the love that it deserved this whole time.
Absolutely. And that's something I've actually learned. It's actually very interesting that you said that. I became a part of a group called ACOA. And if there's nobody that's familiar with that, it's actually Adult Children of Alcoholics. Sorry, it's a bit of a tongue twister. My wife had actually found the group about 2 years ago when I had a very bad mental breakdown. And she said, I hadn't dealt with all this trauma. And they refer to our inner selves as an inner child. And sometimes we just have to listen to our inner child. If that means going out and buying a teddy bear because it makes us feel better that specific day, we need to do that. We need to cherish that. So, what I've learned from ACOA is it's okay to feel a little bit childish some days because we didn't have that. Whereas somebody who grew up in a normal family, aside from dysfunction, they wouldn't understand that. Do you know what I mean? So it really is a much like you have to really just listen to your intuition. And if your heart's telling you that you need to go out and do something, even if it is a little childish to somebody else, if it's going to make you feel better, you need to do that for you.
That is so true. And, it's funny that you mentioned like the teddy bear, if sometimes you need to be childish. For me, one thing I noticed was I always have loved robes. I love the way like robes feel because they're just soft and
Yeah,
comfortable. And you just feel like you have a nice warm hug with you at all times.
absolutely. Yeah.
And for me, that's where I feel the most comfortable, where I feel the most like safe. I always have this saying, home is where the robe is, because that's where I can go
That's
back.
where you're most comfortable.
Yeah, exactly. So, and for me personally, where I can relate to you is growing up so fast and feeling like you're the wise one. People feel like you're so mature for your
Hmm.
age. And when you're growing up, you think, oh, that's cool. I feel grown up. But then you go back now that you're older and you look back, you're like, oh gosh, I was just either really serious because I had to get things done. I had to care for myself so early on. It's a little different now that you look back.
Yeah, I think definitely. Look, when I was younger, I was like, "Oh yeah, I love this." But the problem is with that, I took it too literally, and I grew up. I acted way older than my age, and I hate that now because I just there's no innocence there. So it can be a very toxic thing to say at the same time if you don't know the person's situation, because sometimes it's all we know is to act older because who else can act older if we feel like we're the wisest ones? Sometimes it's weird to say that. Like I was the child in a two adult home, and my uncle, he cared very well, and he took care of us. But all stuff aside, sometimes I just felt so alone, and I felt like I was raising myself, although I wasn't. Do you know what I mean? I had everything that I needed: food, a roof over my head, clothes, and all that there, but there's the emotional stability that you need instilled in you as a child. If that's not there, do you know what I mean? It really, it's very hard to describe what that will do to you if that's not there when you're growing up.
No, I totally get that. It's so weird. We have so many similarities in this. I mean, for me, it was basically because my mom was a single mom until she met my
Hmm.
amazing stepdad, and she had to work multiple jobs just to provide. So a lot of the
Yeah,
time it was me having to just make the decisions. I had to guide myself,
yeah.
So
Because if there's nobody else there, what are you supposed to do?
right, right. So it's kind of crazy because even as an adult, it's like I've always been told like, "Oh, you're so responsible and you always know what to do." But I'm like, because growing up, I didn't have a choice. I kind of had to just
That's
do it
it.
myself.
Yeah. Yeah. Because if I wasn't doing it, nobody else was. And that's the thing. Like my mother was essentially, she classified herself, and she was a single parent. Do you know what I mean? Even though that we lived with my uncle, that didn't mean that she wasn't a single parent. She was a single parent because my father wasn't there, and we did rely on government assistance, food stamps, and she needed help. There was, although we had a house, didn't mean we had stuff. Do you know what I mean? People live up to this facade and think, oh, they have a house, that you have no idea what's going on behind closed doors. And my mom was coping with everything that was going on. She was an alcoholic before I was born. She then had a child that she was responsible for. And to be honest with you, in my eyes, I don't think that she ever wanted children. And I mean, like, look, it's one of these things that I could go on about whether she wanted a child or not. She wound up having one, and then she was a single parent, and she did have jobs, and then she didn't have jobs. And the problem was the alcohol always won. Do you know what I mean? So it's just tough when you have to make these decisions and be the responsible one when you're growing up at that age, because we shouldn't have to be. We really should. I wouldn't want that. If I ever have children, I would not want that for them. And I know that because I've experienced that.
Right. Kids should just be kids. They should be able to just have
Absolutely.
fun and play and not worry about this and that. Like they just got to worry about, I mean, not like exactly worry, but they should just be focusing on all the innocent and fun things. And,
Yeah.
Even me, I have a toddler and sometimes I have to remind my own self, it's okay to be silly right now. Don't be too serious. And part
Yeah.
of it is, my personality, but at the same time, I'm like, I have to also remind myself that it's okay to let loose and to have the fun because, if
You
not now,
missed
when?
out on that.
Right.
Yeah. And you missed out on that as well. So the fact that you have a toddler, you can enjoy that, with them. And that is so, so special. And it's something that should be embraced because life shouldn't be taken all that seriously because we come in one way and we go out one way. Do you know what I mean? So that's it. At the end of the day, you only have one life.
Absolutely. So, I mean, I love that you're writing a book about this, sharing your story of all the things that you went through. I mean, I think the biggest takeaway is definitely finding ways to not only cope, but also to find your voice and share that story.
Absolutely.
Like, that takes a lot.
It does, yeah. And I think that's so important for me. People ask me, why did you decide to do this? Or what do you want to take away from it? And it's really that I don't care about the sales. The sales are nice. And yes, they will absolutely help me to build this empire that I am building with the bricks that were thrown at me. But there's nothing I care about more than people like reading my story and it reaching people. That is what matters the absolute most to me. And being able to have this platform and I mean, unfortunately, I've had to experience some awful things to have this platform, but I'm now taking that as it was all for a greater purpose. And I believe now I'm not religious at all. I wasn't raised religious, which is probably the problem as well. I don't understand a lot about religion, but I believe there was something, there was a driving force. And I've said this before, when people read my book, they'll definitely grasp what the driving force was behind what kept me going and what kept me alive, rather, through all the years of bad. But there was definitely a greater purpose for everything that I went through. And I'm glad now that I made it out the other side and I have this platform to be able to find my voice, use my voice, and speak my truth.
Yes. And I love what you said that you're trying to build this empire with the bricks that were thrown at you. That is so powerful because we all have a choice. We all have a choice to
Absolutely.
go through the, the traumas and things we went through and stay in that mindset and not grow from it, have this victim mentality. Or we can reframe it and use it to empower others, to impact people. And you never know who is going to be inspired by your story ever. Like, yeah, especially with this platform, with the show, this is exactly why I created it, because I want to not only bring guests on that can share powerful stories, but magnify it so the masses can hear it.
Absolutely. Because I think at the end of the day, you don't realize, like, to me, I struggle with being proud of how far I've come in my story, but I know that somebody is going to pick up my book, and whether it be one page that just is an eye opener for them, it'll all have been worth it. So it really is, it's a blessing, because I'm just taking this and embracing it now as, look, I might have to live with these scars. I might have to live with this trauma. I might have to live with all this for the rest of my life. But if I can change lives with that, then this platform, I'm okay with that. There have been a lot of bricks thrown at me, and I'm recently discovering I'm very prone to bullying and keyboard warriors. So I just think, like, I'm just taking it all and embracing it, because if people want to use the bad against me and paint me as the bad person in their story, that's fine, because at the end of the day, I know the truth and I'll speak my truth. And that's just that, because there's nothing better than the truth.
And, there's always going to be negative people out there. Like, you can't please everyone, and we're all not for everyone anyway. So it's okay. Like, the right people that are meant to be in your tribe will find you and will embrace you and, love you for everything that you're doing and representing. So, I mean, I got to say, the name of your book, Resilience and Autobiography, I think that, wow, like, because I feel like most people don't even realize how resilient they really are until they kind of step back and they're like, wow, I've been through this, and I'm still here. I'm still standing. Yeah, I think that's the amazing thing, isn't it?
I didn't know what I was going to call my book. And this went back and forth for years. I mean, tell you years. I still have all the pages where I have, when I first started writing many, many years ago, I was writing words down. Jesus, I just don't even know. I was writing the silliest words down. And thank God I never went with any of them because my book title would have been terrible. But it was just, I put a post up on Facebook one day, the Holy Grail, you know. And one of the girls I was very close with in work, I think it was something like, leave a word that describes me or something like that. And she said resilient. And I just said, it was literally, it was like a light went off. I said, oh my God, that's what I'm calling my book. I just knew it straight away. And it's really weird. You get these signs and going back again to higher powers and all this here. You know, I knew it. I knew it and I never questioned it. I never doubted it. The only thing I questioned was, how do I word it? Do I do resilience and autobiography? Do I call it a memoir? Do I not say anything? Do you know? So um, it's crazy because the one thing that definitely kept me going, and I know this now, is my resilience. I didn't even understand what resilience was, didn't even know I had it. So it's crazy because through all the bad, what kept me going was my resilience. So the book title to me is more than just a word. It's everything. And we all have resilience. I just think we have to find it.
Absolutely. Find it, embrace it, and just keep on using
Run
it
with
throughout
it.
your life, because
Yeah,
life will keep happening, no matter if it's a huge situation or a small one, but we just got to keep moving forward. Yes. I
absolutely.
love that. One thing I wanted to ask you about. So, if a loved one or a friend is going through something alarming, so with your experience, what does that look like for you?
So personally, now this is just speaking from personal experience. So I'll just say what happened with me. So basically, I'm a survivor of domestic violence. My first abusive relationship, or it's even before that, when I lost my virginity at a very young age. It's hard for me to talk about that now because I feel so foolish, but I didn't realize at the time that I was actually being used for one thing and one thing only, with somebody that I thought I was in love with. So what I think that I'd like to say first is, for younger people, do not put yourself in a position where you feel like you have to do something with somebody because you feel like it's what they want. Make sure that you want to do it. Because I feel like now I did what I did at the age because I thought that they had wanted it and I thought what everybody else was doing. That's the first thing. Never just do it to fit in. The second thing would be, I fell into my first domestic violent relationship at the age of 14. So I didn't realize it until much later, but the signs were, he was very clingy. He was very obsessive. And the problem was he was very good at hiding it. So the first couple of weeks and months of our relationship, I mean, he was like a Prince Charming. I saw nothing, no red flags at all. And then one day, it was like a light switch went off, and I later found out that he actually had I think it was bipolar 2. And the clinginess, the obsessiveness, I mean, the mood swings, everything all of a sudden made sense. So I would definitely say that if you're experiencing that sort of clinginess, like it was down to the fact where, like, my mom used to shut the phone off when she was drunk. And one morning the phone had been shut off. Now I put the phone switch back on and it was already ringing. And when I answered it, he was on a rampage and basically demanding to know where I was the night before, why I wasn't answering the phone, when he knew exactly what my mom did when she was drunk, was putting the phone off. And, this sort of, where were you? What were you doing? Why didn't you answer the thing? So if you see signs like that, like they're getting demanding and they need to know your every move and where you are and what you're doing, and if they're sort of alienating you from your family and friends, you need to seriously take a big look at that. Because for me, I didn't know, I didn't understand. There was nobody that sat me down and have this conversation with me. Like, you need to look for these signs. I suppose we don't. I'm not sure that you, as your child gets older, you're going to sit them down and be like, you need to look for these signs. But it's so important to look for those signs because there is red flags sometimes. If you're starting to wonder about this person's intentions when, you're kind of catching yourself off guard, you're having to explain yourself and explain around yourself, then there's something wrong there. The second abusive situation I found myself in was much worse, much, much worse than the first. And I unfortunately, foolishly allowed it to continue much longer than I should have. And where this person got comfortable was basically hitting me in the face within a matter of weeks. And I knew, and I got really mad because I had just experienced this as a matter of weeks, unfortunately, from the first relationship that I fell into the second relationship. And I know that probably sounds terrible, but it's just the way things happen. But if anybody ever lays their hands on you, it's an automatic leave. Love does not leave marks. And I think men also need to know love does not leave marks. You do not belong to anybody except for yourself. And the signs are always there. If your friends and family are kind of pulling you aside and saying, there's something off here, you need to listen to that. This happened with my cousin. My cousin was in a relationship, and I kept saying to her, I said, there's something not right here. There's something not right here. And come to find out, I was right all along. And she said, if I had just listened to you, but I knew the signs because I had experienced it. So if you're second guessing a relationship, or there's somebody saying something to you, you need to listen to that. It's hard. I mean, I think we've all been in these spots where, we're in love and we think we know best, but intuition is a beautiful thing, and hindsight is even better than that. And if there's somebody pointing something out to you, you need to pay attention. There's always signs in little places. You just know. It's crazy. And I do dive into that a little deeper in my book. I can only speak from my experiences, but it's just little things, like demanding to know where you are. Why are you not here this time? And those sorts of things. Those are very dangerous signs that people need to look out for.
No, you bring up a lot of great points because, love is blind, and we try to see the best in everyone, especially if it's the people that are closest to us. Sometimes it comes from a place of it being hard to even accept, because you're like, how could this person do this to me? Like XYZ, it's been this many years, and, maybe they have children together. It can be really, really hard. But I think overall it comes down to having that feeling of valuing yourself enough to being like, I don't deserve this. I am worth so much more than this. So I got to leave the situation. As hard as it may be, you will thank yourself later.
Absolutely. And I think it's a big thing as well. When you doubt yourself, when you're not really sure, and you're like, well, for me, I blamed myself. I put myself into the situation, and I was like, no, I did this, so I deserve it. We don't deserve that. Nobody deserves it.
Yeah, that statement you said is love doesn't leave marks. That is huge.
No,
No,
it definitely doesn't. True love, no form of love leaves a mark. And, I would love somebody to challenge me on that, because anybody that says otherwise clearly doesn't have a clear view of what love is.
My gosh, you really are very wise. First of all, I seriously am so excited to read your book, because just to even speaking with you right now, I'm like, gosh, it goes even deeper than this in the written word. So it's going to be amazing.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. When is your projected release date?
Yeah. So my release date isn't just a release date for me. It's actually bigger than that. It's June 7th of this year. So we're only 16 days away now, seeing as I'm in midnight time over here. So June 7th, and it's actually my 30th birthday. So I gave myself that goal last year when I signed the actual contract with my publisher. And I said, no, I'm doing this for me, and I'm going to enter my 30s doing this amazing thing. So June 7th, and it's my birthday. So I'm excited. It's I just don't even know. I'm feeling a lot of emotions. It's exciting. I'm nervous, but I'm doing it for me, and I'm doing it for everybody else that can't find their voice.
That is huge. And oh my gosh, so many congratulations. That is just definitely a way to celebrate and to mark that milestone, So oh, I cannot wait. Let's tell our audience on where they can find you on all the social media platforms, where they can tune in until your book release.
Yeah, perfect. So I'm on Instagram. The book has its own Instagram. The Instagram handle is Resilience, the Autobiography, all one word, obviously, no dashes or anything like that. Facebook, it's the same, Resilience, the Autobiography. I have a website where the book is actually available for pre-order. It's available worldwide. Shipping is available worldwide, and there's actually a 10% discount up until release day at the minute. So that's www.resilienceandautobiography.com. I'm just trying to think. The book will also be available in an ebook form. I'm nearly sure my publisher did say in a Kindle form as well. And it will be available on the likes of Amazon and everything as well, and retailers online. And I'm hoping to be able to travel. I would love to do book signings eventually and stuff like that. But the book is available signed or unsigned via my website.
Can I come to the book signing?
Oh, absolutely. You're welcome. I would love, I was having a conversation earlier and the girl said, do you plan on traveling? And I'm like, well, I know that if I go back to New Jersey, I'm definitely doing an event there for the book. It won't be a massive thing or anything, but and I'll be doing one here. I'll be doing a small book release in Ireland as well. And I mean, if my interviews and opportunities of talking to people and doing events can take me worldwide, I am so open to it. I'm so excited to see where this takes me.
Oh, I love that. And I've never been to New Jersey. I've been all over the East Coast, but I have yet to hit New Jersey, New York. So that's definitely somewhere I want to go to at some point. So that'd be amazing if the first time I go would be for your event.
Well, I would love that. And I definitely, when I go back to America next time, I'm hoping to visit the likes of California and stuff because my dad lived in California, and I know that I want to do it. I'm hoping that maybe next year, if I can get the funds and stuff, I can go over. I guess we'll see. Or maybe I'll wind up on like the Oprah Winfrey show or something and I'll have to go over to America. You wouldn't know. We'll never know.
Never know. Right. Anything is possible. And it just takes one person that can just bring it to a whole nother level. So I wish you nothing.
And that's what I'm hoping for.
Yes, I swear, this will fall in the right hands. So I cannot wait for you. So many things will come out of this. I know it and I feel it. So everyone, please snag a copy of Brittany's book. Like she said, there's a 10% off code. There's a 10% off discount right now until the release.
When you go on the website. Yeah.
Awesome. Oh my gosh. So yes, thank you all again for tuning in. All of Brittany's links will be in the description box below, and we'll catch you all next time. Thank you again, Brittany.
Thank you so much.